Hey everybody, welcome back to Titans. Why am I talking about Titans Talk? I moved on. Hey everybody, welcome back to Watching Watchmen. Today we're talking about season number 1, episode number 6, titled, I don't remember, I think it's like an extraordinary being. But if you remember what I talked about last episode, which was mainly about Looking Glass, that episode was phenomenal. I said it was Emmy-worthy. I probably said it about 10 times while I was making muffins. But this episode, I think, may possibly beat it. I think last week was really great in terms of a single character and their storyline and how that whole thing played out in terms of their backstory and how it plays into their current timeline. But this episode was a lot more compelling. It was a lot more meaty. It had a lot more weight to it. It was, if you recall in last episode, the very end, Angela, aka Sister Night, decides to take her grandfather's pills, which are like a memory pill that are tailored specifically for that person's memories. So she essentially takes all of them and not necessarily overdoses, but she goes through a massive trip through his memories, and his memories were actually really compelling and like had a lot of good stuff in it. So essentially her grandfather was a police officer who ended up being the first superhero, aka Hooded Justice. So the way he develops that and becomes that is he faces a lot of adversity in the police department and uncovers some sort of, I guess a scandal is the best way to call it, conspiracy group within them. And so he starts to pursue that, but he can't pursue that as a black person in a very white society. He essentially says that the only reason he got the job was because for the PR. So now he decides to take it upon himself because he can't really get that justice and be able to investigate this group as a normal police officer. He gets into a bit of a confrontation with his fellow officers who decide to try and string him up as a threat. They end up taking him down, but he ends up using that sort of persona of like the noose around the neck with a hood to go after and be essentially the first vigilante or superhero. And he inspires a lot of people by doing so. But they do a lot of clever things where they hide his identity in a way that he puts like on a white makeup on his eyes in order to fool people into thinking that he is a white person. Because in the Hooded Justice, in their canon, he's essentially always been white. There's actually a show, like American Hero Story or whatever it's called, in the actual Watchmen show, where Hooded Justice is a white man. So I think that's actually one of the most clever things I've never even considered, as if somebody put on like a makeup underneath the mask beyond just like an eye black to be able to conceal their identity even further, because you would never guess this guy is a black man dressed essentially with a noose around his neck and all that stuff, because he's got that eye whiteness. I don't really know what to call it. White face? He's not really white face, white eyes. I don't really know what to call it, but the way that he sort of conceals that identity is actually very clever. Essentially, he pursues this group. He has this whole lifetime of being this character, of this Hooded Justice character, inspiring people. And what's really probably one of the best parts about it is how we find out that his role in current day and how he was able to kill the police chief or police guy, Don Johnson's character in the first episode. So we finally get an explanation for that. Essentially what he did is, back in the day, he was discovered that the KKK were using this sort of projector or technology to be able to brainwash black people into essentially killing themselves and trusting white people. So he takes one of those projectors after burning the building down and killing a bunch of people, which totally deserved it, and sort of re-engineers it for the future. I don't know if he got help for it, or if it's just something that he's developed on his own throughout time, into a flashlight, which is the same flashlight that he kind of uses at the beginning, or the very end, of the first episode when Angela shows up. But it's more like a standard flashlight at that point. But it's like a flickering projector that he shines on the captain's face, and he essentially brainwashes him into doing whatever he wants. So he's deconstructed this technology. Not sure if it's with the help of Lady True, but it's actually super cool, and I can't wait to find out more about it. The whole episode is a trip because Angela's Sister Night is essentially going through all of these things and seeing these memories from a kind of a first-person perspective. Every once in a while, she'll take the persona of her grandfather that we get to see. So being able to see her in that role, because she's essentially experiencing these memories after taking these pills, was super cool. I think visually this episode was probably one of the best. I'm not a major fan. Overall, visually, I think this was one of the best episodes, hands down. I'm not a super big black and white person in terms of movies, but this was hands down one of the best black and white, with a little bit of color mixed in for just like some emphasis every now and again. That was really cool. This was one of the best episodes I think that this show has, and this has become one of those series that I look forward to every single week, and I can't wait to see what new things they're going to have to show me. There are a couple of dud episodes, as I've said in the past, but the last two have been amazing, standalone, as well as within a grander story of the Watchmen. Oh, and I also really like the fact that they kind of go back to the Minutemen. They allude to that at the very title, at the very beginning when it shows Watchmen, and then it kind of like blows smoke and it becomes Minutemen in purple. And then like he joins the Minutemen later. He wants to pursue this group, the conspiracy group that I kind of discussed earlier. Which he kind of gets shuts down, which was kind of disappointing. The only question mark that I had about the entire episode is they allude to Hooded Justice being homosexual, which is totally fine, and they say it in the very beginning when they're doing like the American Hero story, and then they do it later, but how he sort of becomes attracted to this person that he's having sex with kind of doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It just kind of comes out of the blue. I wish they would have developed that relationship a little bit more before they got to that. But overall, I probably wouldn't change much about the episode. It's really compelling. I was on the edge of my seat the majority of the time because it's just so fascinating to watch. A lot of the history of it is very sad and brutal, but it's so captivating. It's so hard to take your eyes away from it. It's controversial, but I just couldn't take myself away from it. I think might be better than last episode. It's hard for me to say because they are so different. But in terms of a historical standpoint and like a whole bunch of different things happening, I think this episode might be slightly above if they were to both go for like an award. This one might take the cake for it over the last episode. I just really like that he was able to sort of get justice in his own way, but at the same time he kind of lost himself in it, and how that's going to play into what he is today as Sister Knight's grandfather and working with Lady True at the big tower. I don't really know, but she looks like Angela's going to come out of it next week, and how she's going to sort of confront her grandfather about a lot of these things. And also we're going to get the trial of Ozymandias, which is really interesting, which I forgot to mention last week, how he was like on some moon in Jupiter or something like that, which was his prison. Don't know what's happening there. I'm guessing it relates to Dr. Manhattan, but I have no clue. But I'm really excited to see what happens with that storyline. Just a lot of interesting things that I can't wait to see more of. And like I said before, Watchmen has become a show that I look forward to week. I want to binge it so hard to be able to find out what happens more. But I think this is going to be a whole nother video, is that this whole dynamic of the week to week, not only with like HBO, but some of the stuff that's happening on Disney Plus with The Mandalorian, which I have yet to watch, but I will eventually. It's starting to gain a lot more traction because Netflix was so popular with releasing all the episodes, and they still do on some shows, and then just we binge it, and then we don't get any more for like a year and a half. Now that we're kind of getting that week-to-week thing, I think it's adding a lot more conversation to a lot of shows like The Mandalorian, like Watchmen, in which you can discuss what's happening week to week, and everybody looks forward to it. So how that dynamic's going to shift, I don't know, but I'm kind of for it, but I want to binge it so bad, so it's hard to be for it at the same time. I don't really know what I'm saying anymore. Watchmen is great. Go watch Watchmen. It's a great show. I highly recommend it. This episode was amazing. If you have seen episode number 6, make sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. But really, other than that, that's really all I have for now. Look forward to next week's episode of Watching Watchmen. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.